Hello, grade 12. We are going to do removing duplicates from an array. Possibly one of the most difficult things that you will have to do in grade 12. But it's not that difficult if you know how. Of course, I'm going to try and explain this to you. We have a text file that'll have those names in it, and this is my representation of the names in the text file that have been added to an array with duplicates. I'll call it AR with dupe. What's going to happen is we have to pull out, we have to have a complete array with no duplicates over here. It would obviously will be less, because as you can see, Sinovio is 3 of them, Yusuf has 3, Nicholas has 2, Nina has 2 of them, and it doesn't matter where they're positioned, we can remove these duplicates from the array. And we're going to do it in the following way. We are going to first of all have 2 loops. One will be a for loop, the other will be a while loop. But nonetheless, the for loop is going to go from 1 all the way to the second last box of the array. The while loop will go from the second, in other words the for loop counter plus 1, to the very last box. A bit like that sorting algorithm that we did in grade 11. So for loop's going to take, I'm going to just demonstrate how it works and we'll do the code. The for loop will take that first name, and then the while loop is going to look through the rest of all these names one by one, and if it finds a duplicate, then that will be it. The while loop will end and we'll go to the second box. So we've done Nina now using the for loop and we found a duplicate. Then we'll go to the second one. The while loop is going to now go, the for loop says okay, now we're going to move on to the second one, and then Sinovio, we're going to go and look through from 3 all the way down to 12. We're going to see if there's any duplicates, and yes there is. So then that one's done, nothing is done except the for loop goes to the next one. So the for loop's going to start now at 3, and then the while loop will go from 4 all the way to the last and look for duplicates. So Yusuf, yes, there's a duplicate. So, oh no, Nicholas is looking for Nicholas. The for loop is on 3. Okay, I'm getting confused there. For loop's on 3, and then the while loop's going to go from 4 all the way to the end and look for Nicholas, and yes, there's a duplicate. So nothing gets done, and then the for loop goes off to number 4. In this case it's Yusuf, and then the while loop is going to look from 5 all the way through, and it sees Yusuf, and then the while loop will stop and nothing is done. Then the for loop is now on 5, Asisipo, and the while loop is going to go from 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and doesn't see any duplicates. So guess what? Inside the for loop we're going to copy Asisipo and go and put it into the array with no duplicates. So we'll have a counter for an array with no duplicates and add it to that array. Right, so that's the for loop is at 5. Once it's done that, then the for loop is going to go on to the next box. Number 6, looking for duplicates of John. Is John anywhere else there? So the while loop is going to go from 7 all the way to 12 and check to see if there's a John. No, there isn't. So the counter for the array with no duplicates is going to be incremented, and John will be added to the array with no duplicates. Right, so for loop's now going to go to 7. For loop is now at 7. The while loop is going to go from 8 to 7 plus 1 all the way to the end, and yes, it finds a duplicate, so it does nothing. Okay, so that one's done. The next one, for loop is at 8 now, and then it goes, the while loop will go and look at the rest of the array and it does see there's a duplicate, so nothing gets done. The for loop is now at 9, okay, and then the while loop will go from 10 to 12, and there's no duplicates, so therefore the for loop, the array counter for no duplicates, that special array could have an array counter for no duplicates. That's going to add 1 to it, and we're going to copy Sinovuyo into that array box number. Right, so the for loop is now going to go off to number 10. Now remember, the for loop only goes up to this point here. For loop will stop at the second last element, but it's at 10 now, okay? So the while loop will go from this, the one after it, to there and see for duplicates. No, there's no duplicates, therefore we have to increment our counter for array with no duplicates and go and add that item into our array with no duplicates. Right, that's where the for loop. Now the for loop is going to jump to 11, and this is the last box that the for loop is going to worry about. And the while loop is going to go and look at number 12, but we see there is no duplicate, so Nicholas has to then go and be added into the array after we have incremented our array with no duplicates. The counter for our array with no duplicates increment. Now what's going to happen to this very last item? Well, that's why after all of that is done, the array with no duplicates, after the for loop is finished, so the for loop will stop there, and after that, remember the while loop is inside the for loop, and after the for loop is finished, code has to be written to go and increment our counter for array with no duplicates, and then we go and slot the last one into that array with no duplicates. And that is it. And now we're going to write the code for it. So that is the mechanical explanation, if you want to call it that, of removing duplicates. Now when I run this program, you'll see the same names there, just to keep continuity going. When the onActivate event is reading the names from the text file and displaying them, so there they all are with the duplicates. In the remove duplicate button, we have to do a couple of things now. I've got to display a procedure over here that I'll call afterwards, but we need to have a for loop counter for starters, and that's easy. Okay, remember I said we have to have a for loop and a while loop, and remember I said that the for loop has to go from 1 to the number of boxes minus 1. And our count is the number of boxes. How do I know that? Well, the array is declared globally, and we filled it up over here. Now, we don't, we do have to change things up a bit. We can use a global array with no duplicates, or we can use a local one. It all depends. If we want to send our array off to display, we can do that. So yeah, let's make it a local variable, arr no dup colon array. Now it's useful and it's a good idea to make the array the exact same numbers and data types, of course, as the original array with the duplicates, and also our count no dup. We need an integer counter that will be incremented each time we find, as I said over here, each time we get to 1, and we have to increment our counter if we don't when we go through the loop, as I explained. Now we need a counter for array with no dups. Now we also need a while loop inside our for loop, and the while loop has to have 2 conditions, because we want it to stop when we find a match. So it's very much like searching through an array. Just pretend you've got one box and you're going looking through all the others to see if there's a duplicate or not. And remember I said when we find one that is duplicate, we want to say the duplicate is true. We can say b found equals true when we find a duplicate, and then we move on to the next one. So in the while loop, we've got to carry on searching until we find a duplicate. So we need a Boolean variable, and let's go set it to false before we go and enter that while loop. And that's going to be one of our conditions. While b found equals false, the other one we have to go to the end, and when we want to go to the end of our array, we need to have some sort of a counter that's going to go, because remember the for loop is going to take 1 and then the while loop is going to go from the for loop counter plus 1. Okay, the for loop counter plus 1. So we've got to set it to the for loop counter plus 1, and we've got to go through each box of the array all the way to our count. So let's make our little while loop counter. I'll make it inum equals k plus 1. Right, inum can be our while loop counter. We're going right through to the end. So one of the conditions of the while loop has to be that we are going to stop when we reach the end of the array, while inum is less than or equal to our count. And our count is the total number of boxes in the array, remember? So we set inum to be k plus 1. If k is 1, then inum will be 2. If k is 2, then inum will be 3 to start off with. And each time we're going to increment. So we've got to do things inside our while loop. It's always a good idea to put a comment here. So say this is end of for loop, because we're going to have another begin and end over here. And to keep track of things, put a little comment if you get lost like I do. Right. So inside the while loop, we're going to go and ask a question. If, now we're dealing with the array with dupe, okay? We're dealing with array with dupe. Again, k is over here, while loop is sitting over here, and we want to see if k is the box number k is equal to the box number inum of the array. So if ARR, what's the name of this array? AR names. If AR names box number k equals AR names box number inum, okay, then we're going to say b found equals false, true, because we found a match. Okay, now remember I said we were going to do nothing, and that is it. We're just saying b found equals true, which means the while loop will stop. But if we don't find a match along the while loop, using the while loop, we're then going to increment our inum. And inum is going through to the next one. Okay, sorry, not the whole. So what happens is, let's read this again. Okay, it's a very simple little while loop, but it can be a bit confusing. So the for loop is going to be 1. Okay, the counter k will be 1. We check the while loop inum will be 2. Is that equal to that? No. Then we'll go to the next one, and that is what that increment inum is. We'll go to the next array box number. Now inum will then be 3. Is 1 equal to 3? No. Is 1 equal to 4? No. And if it's not, increment inum, and that is what that is doing. That increment inum is moving the while loop counter across the line until it gets to the end, and it's still going to check the end. So box number 1 equals box number 12 in this case, and also we've now reached inum equal to 12, or our count will be 12 in this case of this example, and therefore we'll check the last box, and then we'll increment inum, which will be 13, and then the processor will go up there and check, oh, inum is now 13, it's not 12 anymore, so ends of the for loop. No, end of the while loop, sorry. End of the while loop. Then the for loop is going to start, continue to number 2. So k will now be 2. Okay, so then we're going to take 2 and go and check. And it does the same thing all over again. Then it takes 3, and then it checks the rest. Then it takes 4, and the while loop will check the rest. Then it takes 5, and the while loop will go from 6 to 12. Then it takes 7, and so on. But when we find a match, in other words, when we don't find a match, like for instance, where was it as a sepal? If the for loop now is 5, okay, and we go through the rest of the while loop and we do not find a match, then we have to increment, before we get to the next box inside this for loop, we have to increment our counter no dup and go and say ARR no dup square brackets our count no dup equals ARR names square brackets. What will that be? It's square brackets k, the one that we were looking for duplicates. Remember, this is actually part of the for loop. This code here is inside the for loop. Okay, it's outside the while loop. The while loop's done its job for the one k. It's looked for it, couldn't find any duplicates. Okay, we have to have a question here saying if b found equals false, meaning that it couldn't find any duplicates. Then we can go and add that k number, in this case RCC4. That's what happened there. We said b found was false because we couldn't go through. It couldn't find any when we went through with the while loop. The for loop was at 5, which was our sepal, and then the while loop went all the way to the end, didn't find any duplicates, so b found stayed false. That's why we have to ask this question here before we go for the for loop. After the while loop's happened, we've got to go and check, is b found still false? If it is, we increment our counter with no duplicates, and then we put that box number k that we searched for duplicates using the while loop, if we put it into our array with no duplicates at this thing. Now of course the first one must be 1, and remember that an integer will always be initialized, must be initialized to 0, otherwise in a procedure, a local variable in other words, will have a random number allocated to it. So we must always initialize counters and totals, totaling variables and counting variables. So our count no dup must be 0, and then when we increment it, it will be 1 for the first one that we find that there are no other duplicates. So removing duplicates is not actually deleting or removing anything. We are actually finding duplicates and putting them into an array. Now remember when I showed you this, where we went through to the for loop stops over there to 11 at this second last thing, and then it looks for duplicates, and the last element of the array gets left out. So you have to accommodate that and go and increment after the for loop. You have to go and increment a counter, the counter for no duplicates, and go an array, add that to the array, add that last element of the array with duplicates into the array with no duplicates, square brackets our count. And how do we represent the last element of an array? Using this variable our count. Remember the one over there that shows how many items in the form activate event that was incremented when we added to the array initially. So that is the code. Now if I wanted to display, I wanted to call display. Now the thing with this display procedure I wrote, it's only doing it's only displaying the one array. I must modify my procedure so that I can display a whole array. So we're going to do that using a data type. If you want to move an array around in your procedures, you need to have a data type for the array. So ARR type equals array 1.20 of string. If you want to put arrays in parameters of your user-defined procedures and functions, like for instance here we want to go and put in an array that's going to go to display, I'm going to use an array type. I can put a T in front of it, I can do anything I want. T array type. So I'm going to say ARR something array of names colon TARR type. You see, I'm defining my array in my display procedure. The parameter that's coming in here is the one that we're going to display. Display ARR of names. Just to make a different word. I can't use ARR names, I already got it over there. So you can't use variable names that you've used before. It's not a good idea, and you can seriously introduce bugs. So we are now going to implement that. Control-Shift-C. Well, of course we've implemented already, so I've got to add this onto the end of my array, my display procedure that I've implemented already, just to match it up. And then over here I include this ARR of names, but that's not enough. Although I could just leave it at 20, I suppose. I can't. It's a global variable. I don't actually want to do that. So as well as having our array type, we have to have a specific counter that comes into this procedure display, INO integer, and this will also come in here, because whenever you're traveling with arrays, or arrays are going off somewhere, you need to have the counter that's associated with that array. In other words, how many boxes are actually filled in that array. So that's also important. I should have included that into my parameter list. So let's go and put that into the parameter list quickly. Okay, so that's there. So now inside my parameter list, take note, I'm using ARR of names inside the actual display procedure, so not the parameter list. Inside the display procedure, I'm using ARR of names. I'm using this array that comes in here, and I'm displaying that array, not the global array, not any other array. I'm displaying the one that comes into this procedure display, and I'm using this counter for the number of boxes that are filled. So there's rewritten that procedure. I won't worry with the, well, I could actually send instead of this line here on activate, you see I'm dealing with the global variable here. I can go and call display and put in ARR names, comma our count, and that is how we're going to go and display our array here. The global array after reading from the text file and filling the array with each line. I'm going to call the procedure display after that while loop, sending this array ARR names and our count, the number of boxes that are filled, to display, and that is what it will then be called once it gets here, this parameter list. That will be ARR of names and INO, so whatever gets sent there is going to be renamed over here, and will hold that particular array and integer. So we're going to do the same here with this button click. When we remove duplicates, remember we have ARR no dup. Well, this also has to be of that array type, and so does this. We have to declare these arrays not as arrays, separate arrays, TARR type. The type that we defined up here, we have to use it now in our declaration of our arrays in order to get them to be moved around. So we're going to go, and so that's done. See, I've got my array no dup, TAR type, ARR names, TAR type, they're all both of that type. We have our counter, our count no dup, and ARR no dup. We use the global variable array names over here to go and find the duplicates, and these are local array for our array with no duplicate. Doesn't matter, we can still go and send it off to our display. And in here we'll put ARR no dup, comma, and our count no dup. Okay, and that will display the array. I'm going to save this quickly and run the program, and let's see what errors. Oh, always an assignment statement. I always seem to forget to put in the colon. And here we go. Let's see. There we go. It's all done. There are 6 names, and if you want to double check, yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So everything's fine. Well, I certainly hope that you enjoyed that, and if you basically don't understand, just watch it again and again and keep coding.